Okay. Hello, everyone. We're back. This is Sharon Sanani Kumar, and I'm here today with Kendra Jonas. Hi, Kendra.
Hi, Sharon. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Doing awesome. Thanks
Good, good.
for having
Yeah.
me on.
Oh, of course, of course. It's always good to see you. We haven't seen each other in a while because of everything that's going on. Yeah, we've known each other almost 2 years now, right?
Yeah, has it been that long?
I think so.
It has. Yeah.
Ah, wow. Yeah, it's been, gosh, almost a year since we've been in lockdown kind of thing. So,
And it goes by fast. And
well, 7, 8 months, whatever. So, Kendra is a fellow practitioner, fellow channel. She works with Galactics, and I'm going to read your bio now and just let people know a little bit of what you're about, okay?
all right.
All right. Kendra Jonas is an author, website designer, organite artist, public speaker, and a channeler for extraterrestrial intelligence. Kendra's interest in higher consciousness stems from having multiple encounters with ETs and light beings, one of which gave her the seven principles of I Am, which became the material for her book entitled The Link. Kendra continues to share information from her book to help others gain momentum toward fifth dimensional consciousness, while she also regularly channels a fifth dimensional light being named Melody, who offers clarity during times of contrast and polarization. Kendra lives in Portland, Oregon with her husband and 3 sons and continues to channel Melody at public events and groups and also offers one-on-one private sessions as well. Okay. Wow. I'm so excited to talk to you. Okay. So, can you tell us a little bit about how you came to know Melody, if you don't mind?
Sure. So that's been sort of this progressive thing. So it's hard to kind of jump into like how I met Melody without kind of going back just a little bit.
Sure.
So I started having my first encounters with extraterrestrials back when I was, I think I was 22 years old. It was 1994, I believe. Um, and I started having frequent visitations with the Greys, and it just rocked my world. Like I wasn't, into Star Trek or sci-fi or anything. I just thought I was a normal kid going to college. I was ambitious. I was working and trying to get a degree and doing all the right things, and like that started happening, abductions, and I didn't know what it was, and there was no internet back then. There was no way to just Google something.
Mm,
so
right.
so I was like, I went to the libraries, I kept trying to find books about what is this, and there wasn't a lot out there, back then. So I just started journaling stuff, and I tried to seek some people or something to try to figure it out. And I did end up finding a group back then called PUFOG, Portland UFO Group.
Mm,
And there were other people like myself who were having regular abductions. It was also a place where they would bring in speakers and have researchers come. So my world started to shift from that point on. It was like, oh my gosh, there's another reality out there. And I couldn't like deny it. I couldn't say ETs aren't real and abductions aren't real and UFOs aren't real, because I was experiencing all those things, whether I liked it or not. So I didn't have the option, to just say, well, I don't believe in life on other planets, or, how some people would have these discussions. I'm like,
right.
hey, just ask me, they're here, trust me,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
Hmm.
And so I had that going on, and that shifted me a lot. And it's so hard to try to describe. It's more than a physical kind of experience. It shifts people spiritually as well. It opens up gateways or something that I wish I had the words to explain, but I see it sort of like you know, a stargate. Like our chakras are like stargates in a sense.
Hmm.
And so when you have these paranormal or these interdimensional experiences where you're dealing with beings that can literally shift in and out of the visible spectrum, and come in and out of our reality, I think that it opens up portals in ourselves.
Right.
And so um, things just started to evolve throughout my life. There would be periods where I had a lot of experiences with these grays, and then the experiences shifted to other kinds of beings. My ability to what's the word? Just kind of like, I guess, have premonitions enhanced, um, sensitivities enhanced. Maybe I became more empathic. I became very sensitive to certain sounds, to certain things that were, that like foods that were GMO'd and things like that
Mm,
started bothering me. So my body was changing and my aura was changing. Everything was changing. And I started to be able to see and perceive interdimensionally. So I started to see other types of beings that weren't so nice. And
mm.
I, the best way to describe them was that they look a lot like gargoyles, the things that are on the Catholic churches.
Wow.
And I started to be able to see them. So I would get up in the night to use the bathroom and I would feel this thing behind me following me. And this would happen periodically. And every time that I felt this thing following me, I would be able to tune in and see interdimensionally what that looked like. And I could see features. I was like, that looks like a gargoyle. What the heck is that thing? you know? Anyway, every time I would have that experience, I'd go back to sleep and those beings would paralyze me. And sometimes I would have these battles, where I'm trying to be able to move, and I was constantly having the experience of paralysis and being bothered by these beings. And it was really scary. It took a long time to um, kind of work with that and figure out what it was and to take my power back. And how I started to take my power back was I was feeling very desperate one night. I was very scared by all of this. I felt like everything was just like, why is this happening? And so I just started praying or reaching out, asking the universe and creator, please help me. I don't understand this and I'm scared. And I was begging. And that's when I heard this voice speak back to me. And I have never, ever heard anybody speak back to me when I was asking for help. And it
Wow.
was a woman's voice. And she says, I'm here to help you. She said, I'm your guide and I'm always here and I'm always available anytime you need anything. And I'm like, whoa. And it wasn't an audible sound. It was coming in through my mind, my brain,
Uh-huh.
through the right side of the brain. Like literally on the right side, I could like pinpoint to the location and everything of how I was hearing her. And I was like, really, you're never going to leave? And who are you? And I just kept asking questions. I think I was up all that night just talking to her, asking questions, getting information. I'd fall asleep for a while, I'd wake up, are you still there? you know, it's just checking in, So it was really interesting. This relationship started from that point on.
Wow.
And I learned about her. I could hear her anytime I asked. There she was. And I would just kind of feel that out for many months. What is this being like? And she was very kind and loving, always very high vibrational. And then and I was sharing everything with my husband and my close family, my kids, not really my extended family, but I was sharing with friends about what was happening.
Uh-huh.
And then they started asking questions. Well, ask Melody, this for me. And I would ask and hear the answer and tell them. And so things just started to evolve, especially when I was getting all this confirmation that things were very, very accurate, things that there's no way I could know. But Melody was able to diagnose things. She was able to warn us of different things that were about to happen. Just a whole number of things over time that
Wow.
proved to me this is not me.
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
and
Wow.
then the full on channeling happened maybe a year or two after that, where I was actually on a radio show and somebody said, well, Rainer, my husband was asking questions and maybe he got the questions from other people, but
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I would pause. I would do that thing where Melody would hear the question and then I'd tell him. But then
Mm-hmm.
it just sort of happened where I just slipped into kind of this altered state, and she started speaking through me, and I'm like, oh, I guess I don't need to be the one in the
The
middle
go-between.
anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, the go between. So yeah, and that was so
Oh,
much easier.
oh, that's amazing. Yeah, that reminds me a little bit of my journey because I started remembering experiences with grays,
Mm.
and I didn't remember them in real time though. So are your memories in real time? I mean, I guess you could call them memories, but you're actually being taken in real time, and you have that recollection in real time. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they would it would be really weird though sometimes. It would be like I would experience they would paralyze me too. So I'd be paralyzed. Then I would literally be taken, picked up and moved out of my room and moved through the wall. And I remember just seeing, you know, the bedroom just sort of fading out and seeing my husband at the time sleeping, and I was like leaving that world behind, going with them. And then
Right.
the next thing I know, boom, I was back into bed. So there was this gap of time where there was no memory, but
Hmm.
little by little I would piece it together, or sometimes there was full memory. It would just depend on what they wanted me to remember.
Right, right, yeah. Yeah, that's kind of how my memories were is I wouldn't remember during the experience. I mean, I wouldn't be consciously aware during the experience, but I my memory would come back to me either in the morning or maybe a week later or a few days later, and it would just, oh,
Mhm,
wow, okay. And
mhm.
I've been taught to remember my dreams and my nighttime. I'm an out of body traveler. So these things now are come to me, I have full consciousness of them in the experience a lot of the time. But I believe that the reason maybe why we don't have that full on experience real time is because it's just kind of too much for our brain to handle, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the grays that you were working with, were they what was your impression of them?
It was so different. I mean, it's unreal to even try to explain how they are, because we are so used to operating, you know, from kind of both hemispheres of our brain, left and right hemisphere. So we have this emotional intelligence and we have a very logical linear intelligence too. But these grays, they really only operate from left brain. They're super, super scientific, technologically advanced. I mean, beyond what we can even imagine. They are so intelligent. It's just like, wow, you're just in awe when you're around that level of intelligence, but they don't understand emotion at
Okay.
all. Like they don't understand fear. So they would like measure different things like my heart rate and my, you know, whatever physical things they can gauge to try to understand what would trigger me, or because they were so curious about emotions. um, and I believe that's why they picked me to visit and to interact with, and all everything was because I'm very, very right brained, and my whole side of my dad's family is like that. They're very artistic, and I ended up being part of the hybrid program. I don't know if you've heard of that, but
Oh yeah, I'm part of that
your
too.
listeners
I have
maybe
memory of
you're
being part
part
of
of it. Okay, so you know, you know what I mean. Awesome. I'm speaking to family.
it. Totally.
Thank goodness. Oh yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've had children with them
Mhm.
basically so that they could take our genetics and mix it. And it's fascinating. So and a lot of people fear the whole idea of how could if something isn't emotionally intelligent, then they must be bad. They must be you know, like they turn into serial killers or narcissists. You know, they lack emotion. But
Mhm.
that's not the case. It's not that they have bad intentions. They just, that part wasn't what evolved in that particular type of being, and we just label that as scary or bad. So
Yeah.
um,
Some people think that they actually kind of engineered out their emotion, and that's why they are here to reproduce with us, so that they can engineer or you know biologically engineer the emotion, a human emotion back into the species, and
mhm,
take us away from the animal part of who we are, the reptilian part of the brain, and bring that the higher intelligence that they have, right?
mhm.
And our emotional makeup together and emerging. And does that sound like what you may be getting?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, I think that they can genetically engineer or themselves, or maybe clone themselves. They were very much alike. You know, you can't really tell one gray from another personality wise or anything. Uh, yeah, I also noticed that they're hybrid children. or beings, maybe not even children, but just beings that had some of our genetics and some of theirs, did have emotion. They were more like us.
Hmm.
And they would also be able to converse with me more about different things. And I was shown and told that they did actually destroy their planet, maybe from some war or whatever it was. I don't know, but they had to live underground
Hmm.
because it was so toxic on the outside, and that's why they got these really big eyes, because they weren't around sunlight for many, many years. I don't know, but it just sounded like such a sad existence, whatever they went through. And I think that's true, that they are maybe mixing with us, our genetics, to try to create a species, that can live more the way they used to live.
Yeah. There's a book by Courtney Brown. He's a remote viewer who talks about communicating with the Greys who had destroyed their planet, I believe, and I believe they're Martians. It's been a while since I read it, but and how they had to live underground, and that we brought some of them here to our planet to help them, and,
Hmm.
and they're living in South America or something like that. But they're I think they're more human though. I don't know. I may be getting that wrong, but when you were talking about it, it just triggered me. Oh, that sounds like what Courtney Brown was seeing with his remote
Oh,
viewing. It's a
interesting.
really fascinating book. It's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So with my experience with the Greys, that they were more well. I remember them as a child, and there was three of them that were my caretakers, and they would help me when I was being abused by someone who would abuse me on a regular basis as a child, and they would come and get me, and they would heal me, and they would
Wow.
stop the situation when it got to the point where I was going to be killed, and that was where my first near-death experience started and happened.
Wow.
But I remember, which is really weird when people talk about grays, I remember feeling so much love from them. And even when I talk about them, I just well up with emotion for some reason. But I remember one out of body experience recently where I was on a ship, and my daughter, who is a hybrid, was I was visiting her, and she had a child, so it was my grandchild,
Oh.
a little girl, and she had pigtails in her hair. It was very thin, like my hair, but thinner. And she says, "Let me show you what she can do." And she held her by her leg. She was probably, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years old or something like that. And then she let go, and my granddaughter, her little girl, the hybrid little girl, was able to use her hands and float and not hit the ground. There was She was able to control gravity.
Hmm.
Yeah, it was amazing.
That is
And I remember
amazing.
that just like I remember this, and it was really cool. So I remember some of my hybrid children there. I have memories of visiting them, but it's
Mm.
kind of emotional. Do you have any memories of visiting your children?
Oh yeah. When I was, it was very emotional. I hadn't even had
Yeah,
my own kids at that time, but
yeah.
I was repeatedly introduced with one of my a boy, actually, several times. So I was developing a bond with him, and every time it would be a while before I'd see him again. I was grieving. It was really
Yeah,
hard.
yeah.
Um, but interestingly, um, his soul had a life there till he was about, I don't know, somewhere between 6 and 7 years old, somewhere in there. And he didn't survive that life, so our visit stopped. But interestingly, I ended up getting married and getting pregnant, and his soul incarnated in-
Oh,
into this body with
nice.
me. And they came, and he was a hybrid child, my firstborn, here on this planet, same soul. So I started thinking, I wonder if a lot that's happening to a lot of people, where they're having these abductions, and people have partial memories, and then they meet their hybrid children, but they only live for a certain amount of time because they just need information off planet from with that other race of beings for a while. Then these children come here, they incarnate here, and to do light work here. And then they come here with all this knowledge. I mean, Mary Rodwell wrote a book about these
Mhm.
kids that remember lives living off planet. They
Mhm.
come with
Mhm.
star language. They come here knowing physics and technology and new uses of free energy that scientists today don't even understand. And I'm not trying to brag, but I mean, my oldest son does have these super abilities that, I
Sure.
mean, he taught himself Japanese as a second language in like just a few months. He memorized 2,500 kanji characters in one summer.
Wow.
Symbols, yeah, because he wanted to go to Japan. So he really loves that culture and that world, and I mean that in everything Japanese. And he's just this computer person. Like he had all these abilities as a young child too that I've never seen other kids have. Just that I'm like, this
Wow.
is not from Earth. So yeah.
So one thing you mentioned about the gargoyle reminded me of an experience I had when I was going through my what I call a quickening, and when I was um, waking up, I guess you could say, going through sleep, experiencing sleep paralysis and things like that, and seeing through the veil and the world around us, and I saw reptilians. I saw reptilians all around us in the fourth dimension, and I remember I could look at people when I go out. I could look at people and see who were reptilian, who were, I could see through the human
Mm, mm.
part of us, who were fairies, who were mermaids, who
Wow.
were grays, or who, that kind of thing. And I remember one experience in particular where my supervisor, my direct supervisor, who I could see was reptilian. We had a thunderstorm, and I walked by his office and I saw 4 or 5 reptilian soldiers in the office with him, and they were celebrating because they had just won a battle. The thunderstorm was the battle was going on in the fourth dimension, but that thunderstorm was probably the result of it, or to,
Mm,
I don't know, to
mhm.
cover it up or whatever. But that energy caused the thunderstorm in our 3D world, and
That's
I could see
interesting.
them celebrating.
Wow. That is interesting.
It was freaky. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can relate a little bit to the gargoyle thing and how they, yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
But anyway, we could talk about this for a long time, huh?
Yeah.
So, you communicate with Melody on a regular basis, correct?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. Just
Um,
like calling a friend on the phone, I guess,
right.
except you don't have to waste time dialing a number. You can just
Right.
right now. Yeah.
Yes. That's funny. That's what I call myself, the telephone, in sessions. I'm just the phone, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a little staticky, or more staticky some days than others.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting you mentioned that because I don't take any pharmaceuticals at all, but I got sick, I don't know, 3 years ago. That's a whole other story. And I was prescribed this medication and it's neurology type of thing or whatever. But anyway, so I only took it just like to try it out. And I had a channeling appointment or a session with somebody that day.
Hmm.
I had the hardest time channeling when I took that medication, and I never have a hard time ever. And it wasn't that I couldn't hear her, but it was like you described it sounded like static or
Hmm.
something interfering. And so what
Interference.
she changed the dial, she said it took a while to calibrate like a new station or a new way to come in, but she still could. But it was fascinating to see how different, we are with what we put in our body, medications, or I can't drink alcohol at all. I mean,
Yeah.
not because it probably would affect my channeling, obviously, but my body can't do that
Right.
at all. So,
Yeah, me either. I used to be a big partier, before I had my quickening and my near death experience, and I was, I just going through life partying, doing my thing.
mhm,
Yeah, but now I don't. My body's just like, nah, I don't think so.
yeah,
No, no, thank
yeah,
you. Yeah. Same thing with me. Not that I'm, putting, anyone who wants to eat meat down. It's just that my body just isn't attracted to it. You
Right.
know, I might eat salmon once in a while or something like that, but I got to, where I'm just not attracted to different vibrational, like you
Mm,
said, foods, and whatever we put in our body definitely affects
it
what,
does.
what comes out and what we're doing, especially with
It does.
working that way.
Exactly. Because in order to channel, I mean, your vibration has to, it has to step up a bit. And I think their vibration has to step down a bit so you can meet somewhere in the middle. And yeah, food. I mean, I love cheese and dairy and not really milk, but cheese,
Yeah.
and yet, oh man, I mean, if I try to eat that way or eat too much of that, y- I I don't feel well. And Melody has told me before, I told you not to eat the cheese. You're feeling the way those cows are being treated, even organic cows. It doesn't matter because in order to get the milk from these cows, they have to take away their babies,
Mm.
continue to make them breastfeed without their babies there. I mean, it's not humane, no matter how we look at it. And then we're eating that energy.
Yeah.
So uh,
Yeah. That's
I
why I've always learned that it's always good to bless your food, no matter what, and because we are, like you said, ingesting the energy of the animal, and even the plant, and
Mhm.
so it's I find that just being grateful for it will, and it raises the vibration of the food, and in
Mhm.
any way we can to to thank that animal or thank that plant for giving their life so we could feed
Yeah.
ourselves. But yeah, we need to be more humane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right, about transmuting it too, blessing it, having a lot of gratitude. And that's true with anything in our lives,
Sure.
even this whole COVID lockdown thing. I mean, just to find what we're grateful for each day and not looking at the negative stuff or letting the fear stuff get in the way, but just being like taking the time to just really appreciate the silver lining because it's always there. And then
Right.
that raises our vibration. And then it's like you almost feel like you're not even in the same world anymore,
Oh, totally.
and look
Speaking of which,
outside.
yeah, yeah. And then you leave that energy, that construct, that hologram of fear.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do have you and Melody had any conversations about the ascension and maybe the timeline for it, and what's happening and where we're going, that kind of thing?
Yeah, it's funny. I always am drawn to have I have people come to my house usually New Year's Eve, so we can kind of get
Hmm.
information for what's the upcoming year going to be.
Nice.
And so this last year, she said that this would be the year 2020 is the year of perfect vision. She didn't go into detail about a virus hitting. I mean, people would have absolutely freaked out if she had said, virus is going to come and
Yeah.
you're going to be on lockdown and you're going to have to wear masks. It wasn't that clear, but but she
Right.
did say that this was going to be a very different year. There's going to be you're going to look back and see have perfect vision. You're going anything that you weren't sure about is going to surface. You're going to see exactly who's on the good side and who's not on the good side. It was going to be clear, and that's exactly what was happened. Was revelations happen this year. So I
Totally.
haven't channeled like for a group yet about what to expect for this next coming year. But I have gotten information about what to expect for the election and thereafter. And
Mhm.
um, she did say that, Trump is going to win the election again, whether your viewers like that or not. Everybody has their own opinion politically.
Right.
Um, but that things are going to work out okay, but there's going to be she kept saying it's going to be very different from any other election you've ever had. And she's been saying that all year, and she's not giving me a lot of detail about what that means other than I'm feeling some unrest. I'm feeling that somebody's going to be challenged. She also said that Trump was going to go against Pelosi at one point, and that never made sense to me because I'm like, how the president, the running vice president, and Harris and Biden aren't Pelosi. So how is Pelosi going to get in there? And
Mm.
then I started to find out that that if something happened to them, she would actually step in, or
Mm.
she might be the one that steps in to make a decision or something where he's going to end up fighting against her.
Well, they're
And I,
kind of doing that now with the stimulus and everything, right?
yeah, so it is showing that a little more. Yeah. So I don't know. I, I personally feel uneasy, but just because I feel uneasy and fearful about things doesn't mean that anything. I'm separate from Melody. So when I get nervous, she usually comes in and says, hey, everything's fine. Don't worry about this, you
Mm.
know, and that's pretty much what she's been saying. It really is going to be all right.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't vote for Trump in 2016. Was it 2016? Yeah, 4 years ago.
I didn't either. I didn't vote at all
I
last
know.
time.
Okay. I know. I had a hard time with that one, and I ended up throwing my vote away. But I voted for Libertarian, and and I just went, to see who was in line with what I felt at the time,
Mhm,
and but then on during the I shouldn't say but during the solar eclipse,
mhm,
I was here by myself, and I was out in the yard and looking at it. Here in Oregon, we got a full view of it, right?
mhm,
So at the apex of the solar eclipse, I had this channel, and it hit me like a two by four
mhm,
that Trump is a catalyst, and he's a catalyst for bringing all of this to light. What do you want to call it? The deep state, pedophilia, the Illuminati, whatever you want to call it. It was his job, or no matter how he did it, whether it's because he didn't like what he said, or he did stupid things or whatever, but that was what he was in office for, to bring all that to light.
mhm.
And it was huge for me. I had to write it down so fast because it was just
Wow.
coming really fast, and it was a really strong channel and impression that I got.
Wow.
And because I know my boyfriend voted for Trump back then, and we're like, boy, we have these conversations. I'm like, I don't even want to talk to you, okay? Just go away. So,
I
and
That's how a lot
so
of people felt then, right?
yeah. And so, as time went by, I started to do some research and realized that we're moving into a time, and these things need to, right, like you said, need to come up. And uh, however you want to look at it, all these things are coming up that have been hidden for so long.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
who else was going to do it?
Yeah. And it's really interesting because what I see happening on a macro scale is also happening on a micro scale, and everything's all linked. So if people haven't healed their own family traumas, and there's so much of that, there is so much sex abuse and so
Mhm.
much denial about it
Mhm.
that people can't heal that. But when you take a politician who's blatantly, doing things that are questionable around in the public eye around young children. And you have QAnon talking a lot about pedophilia and the human trafficking stuff. And then Trump also wanting to build the wall to try to help stop this human trafficking. And when you see all this stuff coming out in the public eye, it's forcing people to go within, and they're either going to deny all that stuff like families do when there's abuse. They're going to keep denying it and pushing
Right.
away, or they're
Right.
going to say, whoa, this is a problem, and then that's going to reflect in their own selves. They're going to start looking internally. Have I been a victim of sex abuse? Do I need to do some healing with that? Do I need to point a finger at Donald Trump and say, I have daddy issues because he's an authoritarian father representation of dad when I was growing up. So
Yeah.
all these things that we're seeing, this anger, is actually people's, wounds that
Mhm.
go way back into their childhood or maybe even past lives. And it's surfacing so we can heal it. And I think it's exciting. It looks like it's people are all troubled and they're in conflict and they're mad, but they're clearing all this stuff out. So their
Yeah.
family lines can be cleared, and
Perfect.
then we move to an ascension after that. I think that's the one last thing to kind of clear is the wounded child, because that's the most vulnerable aspect of who we are, right?
Yeah, the wounded child and the wounded and the feminine, the divine feminine, bring the divine feminine definitely back onto the planet, and the goddess energy and the Sophia energy,
Mm,
and that was pretty much buried during the Galactic Wars, and
mm,
so and that's another whole another conversation, but yeah, I totally get what you're saying, and it all starts within us, right? Because we're projecting all this anyway, whether
mhm,
we want to accept it or not.
mhm.
Just study up on Ho'oponopono, and of course miracles and the holographic universe, and yeah, because like you said, if we don't heal what's going on within us, then our world is going to be
Yeah, it looks a lot uglier than it really is because
yeah,
we're hurting inside. And yeah, so it's just very interesting how no matter what I'm seeing sometimes is no matter how much is out there that is shocking, to witness, some people are still in denial and they're like, no, I didn't see that, or I'm still voting for that party. It doesn't matter. Don't tell me that too much, and it just reminds me of those families that where they
yeah.
try to protect the abuser.
Yeah, yeah, totally. The abuser, yeah, and personally having to deal with that as a child, it's not that there was protection there; it was denial.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah.
not happening. That's not happening.
Hmm.
So the only way I was able to deal with it myself is my parents and those people that were supposed to have taken care of me during the issue had to die. But now they're my biggest helpers on the other side. So they've helped me heal
Oh.
through it. And they see now, not that we had any discussions about it growing up,
Hmm.
but when I was a child, of course I tried to say something, but nobody wants to do that. They sweep it under the rug, right? And
Right.
so yeah, but now they understand that, and forgiveness is always huge with everything in life.
Mhm.
And if anyone if are you familiar with the Law of One, the Raw teachings?
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. So anyone who's familiar with that, Raw teaches that. What is this quote? For, the stoppage of the wheel of karma lies in forgiveness.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Definitely.
we can step off that karmic wheel once we forgive what's
Hmm.
ourselves and
Absolutely.
of course others, but it's
Yeah.
all us.
Yeah, we actually create our own karma. We think that karma is like a punishment from a deity or something, but really it's because we have an emotional attachment that's low vibrating to another object or another person. That's all that is, and that's what brings it back to us so we can clear it. And so cool that you said, your parents are on the other side now helping you. And I've had similar experience with my dad. He's been deceased for oh, I don't know how many years. Was it 16 years now, I guess, but yeah, we had some issues and stuff when I was a kid, but I because I have a relationship with him in the afterlife too. He's had many visits with me. I have seen him evolve in leaps and bounds. And some of the reason he did was because I was shifting in me too and healing and doing work, a lot of spiritual work here that helped heal that damaged patriarchal line in my family. There was a clearing that happened and it shifted him to
Totally.
evolve higher and even bring in aspects of other lives that were more evolved into the where he is now. So that's absolutely true. I mean, people never stop evolving. So we can be really mad and like want to have revenge on some person that did wrong to us, but we have to remember that person's never stuck in that moment. It's a moment in time, and they are evolving too and ascending. And the more we heal ourselves and clear things ourselves, the more we're helping them ascend. And
Right.
so forgiveness is, you're right. I mean, it's everything. It is what will help that person move on and you move on too.
Right. Totally. Yeah. Yeah. When we work on our stuff, it helps everywhere around us, forward, backward, and around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Time is not linear.
Yes, totally. Yeah, I love talking with you about all this. I mean, we could go on and on.
Yeah.
So, let's talk about your book.
Sure.
The link, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
I have your book. I saw you at McMinimans.
Yeah,
I
I saw
waited a
you
long
at
time.
McMenamins too. I think you spoke a week before me, right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, that was really cool. And who would have known that in our future, 2 years forward, we would be at the same metaphysical fairs, right?
Right, totally.
That was neat. I remember. Yeah, that was awesome.
So I love your book. Tell us about your book.
So that stemmed from a visitation, not from the Grays, not from Melody either, but another being that came and spoke to me. I call that being the voice of creation. I don't know how else to identify this being. I feel like it was creator himself or herself. I just feel like it was that, or at least it was a being that was channeling for that energy. So I didn't know what to call it because I don't get names. And Melody even didn't have a name. People, beings in other dimensions, higher dimensions, they don't refer to each other as under names like we do, more
Mhm.
like under like it as an energetic signature more. So I decided to name my guide Melody. She, believe it or not, I mean, that's how it worked for us. She just said, "What do you want to call me?" So anyway, so the voice of creation is what I call this being, um, who I was journaling all the time. I was taking notes. I knew ever since I was a kid that I was going to write a book someday. I love to write, but I never knew how that was going to come together. Um, so I was just journaling, taking notes, reading a lot about metaphysical stuff and consciousness and trying to put stuff together. But I was really frustrated this one night, and I just was like, um, "No, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to write a book." I was giving up, and that's when I got a visit that night. It's like, "No, you're not going to give up." he, he says, he just came and he says, "I'm here to give you the 7 principles of I am. These are going to
Mhm.
become 7 chapters for your book." And he just quickly, he says, "You're going to want to write this down." And so I was like in a dead sleep, and I rubbed my eyes and grabbed my phone because I would text notes to myself sometimes, and that's how I did it. So he just told me, and I just typed them all down, and the 7 principles. And he says, when you wake up in the morning, this was the weirdest part of it all. He says, when you wake up in the morning and you look at your notes, you're going to know exactly how all the notes you've ever taken and all your stories and examples are going to fit in to these principles. You're going to know how it fits. And I said, oh gosh, I don't know about that, but okay. And I went back to sleep. And then in the morning, I got out my notes, very curious about it, and looked at the principles, and I could absolutely see how they started to fit together. And
Wow.
within a year, I had the book done
Wow.
after all the editing work and all that stuff.
Right, right. That's awesome. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I have below how people can reach you and get your book and your information. Yeah, totally. Yeah. That's awesome. So did Melody have, oh, well, I was going to ask you if she has anything for 2021, but you said you meet on New Year's Eve to get that information, right?
Yeah, I mean, I could channel her anytime. I could channel for you right now if you wanted, or I don't
That
know if
would be amazing. Yes.
oh, oh, you want to?
Yeah,
Okay, sure,
of
sure.
course.
I'm just gonna shut my door because I heard my son come home and I don't want
Okay.
him to
Okay.
make all this
Sure.
noise. Okay, that part out because
Yeah.
I don't want
Okay.
people to see my big white big butt
Oh,
when I get up. I was bragging on Facebook today that I lost 10 pounds, which is true. I did. But
good for
they'll
you.
look at my big butt and they'll go, God, she's
Oh,
got a ways to go.
no.
Okay.
Yeah, this pandemic is put a few pounds on me too. Okay. All right, but I'll cut all that out. All right.
Okay, thanks. Or maybe not. I don't care. Oh,
Okay, whenever you're ready.
okay. You can ask any questions you want,
Okay.
it's fun. Okay. Hello, Sharon. This is Melody speaking. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you, Melody. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. Thank you so much. It's a
Thank
pleasure
you.
to be here. How may I be of service?
Oh, well, we just thought I'd ask a question or two if you don't mind.
Oh, absolutely. Please feel free.
Okay, thank you, thank you. So, I was wondering, and maybe the audience is what might be wondering what 2021 might bring for us, or if you could tell us what 2021 might bring for us.
Yes, yes. I do see a better year for you all coming up. Many of you might be a little fearful entering into this new year, but I do see it as being more pleasant and more calm. And I'll tell you why. Actually, there's been a lot of clearing and shifting that has happened in the year 2020, much faster than what we thought it was going to be. There are more people that have woken up on your planet that we were not expecting to have evolved to the degree they did for another 5 years. So there's been an acceleration of people who have woken up, who have done a lot of healing and clearing and things. And um, it doesn't take too many to make these big shifts to affect the collective. So you are all a collective. You are all linked to one another. So when some people grow and shift in leaps and bounds in a short amount of time, this affects everybody on your planet. And so what we're seeing for the year 2021 is I just got to say it how it is. I see more blue skies. I see more flowers. I see more colors. And what I'm seeing when I say this is I'm seeing people having a higher level of gratitude and being at a higher vibration to be able to appreciate these things, to be able to appreciate the little things. And I know many of you are saying that it seems like there are so many that are still asleep. There are so many that are still so angry and hateful, but understand that that is sort of the facade that's coming through because of your upcoming election and the stress and struggles that people are feeling of the unknowns. Okay, whenever there's unknowns and apprehensions, that's when people are tense and when they're at their worst. But once the things pan out to where there's more knowns than unknowns, once people see that things really weren't as bad as they thought, that the elected person in office really wasn't as evil as they thought, or that their neighbor really wasn't against them but was just afraid. They're just scared. They're just trying to understand themselves, and they can let go of feeling wounded and hurt by these others who don't quite understand. When all of that happens, then there's nothing left to fight about or be upset about. So we are actually seeing that the clearing and the storm has already sort of occurred, and that 2021 is going to be a little easier, a little bit more relaxed. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't going to still be those in charge who want to have power over others or have this intention of trying to um, get groups of people to collectively agree on things that you may not agree on or resonate with. The mask mandates, for example, there will still be those governors who will want to instill certain things and try to pass certain laws or mandates that aren't going to be what others want. That's still going to happen. However, the majority of those residing in other states are going to not be in alignment with that, and they're going to fight against it, and they're going to help those in other states who are feeling more oppressed. So you're going to see a little bit more differences, I would say, in different states with how they handle things. There will be more of a contrast there. And that's going to create more regulations and more rules that the majority are going to come up with to help those that are being more oppressed. So, your collective group of people that reside in the United States are going to become more unified because of the contrast that you'll see with a few who are still going to want to hold on to trying to have authority over others. So that's what I see as being some of the biggest changes. But as far as worrying about food shortages. No, I'm not seeing that. Or worrying about um, things like big, a vaccine mandate, for example. There's just a few who will want to try to push that. The majority don't want it. And so just because of that, they can't enforce that either. So you will see some of these things sort of fade away. Maybe not right away, but they will. They will fade away because they're not going to work. People won't stand for that.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you. That sounds like good news.
Yes, yes.
I do have one more question, and hopefully you can answer it. I don't know if you can. I keep getting from my what I call my peeps that around 2029, 2030 that we might have a solar flash, and that this would could be a turning point, the point of, I guess, no return, with moving us into the fourth density, as Ra and the Law of One talks about. Can can you look at that and see if you have any, can give us any information on that, whether it's, just not true, or anything that you can give?
No, that may very well be true, um, because your galactic sun, or your dwarf sun that lies just outside of your regular sun, is emitting energy right now all the time. There is a frequency that's coming through on your planet that's more intense than what you have had in the past. This happened post 2012, after the galactic line, after you crossed over that threshold and entered into a different aspect in your solar system. One that I would say could be defined as a higher vibrational area of space and time. And so solar flares, your sun and how it reacts to these changes is what's causing the solar flares. It's not a random thing. The solar flares, the solar flashes, or uh, the sunspots, as your scientists call them, is all from the interference of these other energies that are coming through. Your planets around you act differently because of that. They have different cycles. They different things have affected their own momentum. So everything is changing. Everything is kind of heating up, so to speak, but not necessarily physically heating up, but energetically speaking, vibrationally, it's expanding and advancing and accelerating. So time might seem to pass more quickly for many of you. Many of you have noticed that about your time, or time doesn't seem what it used to be. Um, there is something called linear time, which is an artificial orchestration of time. And there is another aspect of time called universal time, or sacred time. And sacred time goes along with the rhythms of your mother earth. You can look to mother earth to understand what sacred time looks like. And that is where there is no beginning and end. There is cycles. And the ancient people talked about these cycles. And there's cycles that happen with your solar system and your sun, and how it emits energy as well, and how it cycles. So there are these cycles that work very well together. And so when you can fall in alignment more with sacred time, and what that looks like to a person is someone that's more answering to the calling of their heart and operating from that sense of time, as opposed to being in a rush to try to get to their 8 to 5 job, and to make all these appointments, and to organize everything in their lives, and have all of the everything laid out. This is exactly how I have to do it. But if something comes along in your life and it interrupts you, and you can't get to that appointment for some other reason, because maybe your mother needed you for something, or your child needed you and you had to stop what you were doing, well, that's called sacred time. That's where the universe steps in and says, this is more important. This is part of your path. Or this free flowing of time is what gets you more into your heart connection, instead of operating from that linear time, which is rushed, which is about survival and making money and all of this. So there's going to be a shifting in your time that's going to affect how you go about your daily lives. And some of you got to experience that already with the lockdowns. This was actually a very sacred moment, believe it or not, when many of you couldn't go to your jobs anymore, when many of you had to stay home. And before you knew that the virus wasn't as scary as they made it seem, when you were home alone, that was a very reflective time. And there was no rushing around anymore. Everything kind of got quiet and the skies cleared up because there weren't as many airplanes out there chemtrailing. People noticed bluer skies. People started uh, picking up their guitars and playing music or singing or dancing or finding ways to connect differently with others. And so this was bringing people to a new awareness that the world didn't end because they didn't go to their 8 to 5 jobs. They're still okay. And so this gave people a chance to evolve more into their heart chakras and into sacred time, which is where you're going to be all the way when you look into the future. What you're talking about, Sharon, in the year 2029 and 2030, you're going to be operating from outside of linear time at that point. And so that will open up all of your awareness more to your connections with your star families and the idea of space being an infinite place of possibilities with infinite discoveries and things that you can't quite understand when you're in the linear frame of reference. So that's what's going to cause the shift. And the solar activity and the solar connection to your space and your relative position in space is what's going to shift for all of you at that time.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. And I won't keep you any longer. Thank you. Hopefully, we'll talk again soon. Thank you for being here.
You're very welcome. Yes. Thank you very much. Peace and blessings to you all.
Oh, same to you.
Thank you. All right.
Awesome.
Hey,
Thank you, Kendra.
you're welcome.
That was
Thank
beautiful.
you.
So, when you channel, do you remember the information?
Um, a little.
Yeah.
I remember the pictures that I
Uh-huh.
saw and kind of some emotions I felt as I'm hearing it because I'm present, but I'm just glad you recorded it so I can go back.
Right.
Yeah.
That's how my channel is. It's kind of like a dream, right?
Yeah.
I kind of remember bits and pieces because I'm kind of out here, and the further I get away from it, no, I don't remember any. Yeah,
You totally get it. You're right on it.
yeah.
I can
Well,
tell
that
you're
was
a fellow channeler.
yeah. Well, yeah, I do the same thing. Yeah, we're kind of on the same kind of path, aren't we?
Yeah, that's wonderful. I love meeting somebody
Parallel
else.
journeys. Yeah.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I could talk with you all night. We'll do this again if you're
Yeah,
willing.
absolutely. It's been a pleasure. I really enjoyed it. So good to talk to you too, Sharon.
Okay. Well, again, thanks again, and I will say goodnight to everyone and have a good evening, Kendra.
Thank you. You too. Take care. Okay, bye.
Bye bye.